Hey everyone, welcome to Signals. I'm your host, Gwen Chen. Here's the truth. Everyone has data. Winners have signals. Every episode, I sit down with leaders who have cracked the code, turning data into growth, signals into opportunities, and insights into actions. Marketing, GTM, growth. If you want to know what's actually working, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest challenges facing marketers: how to do more with less. Budgets are tightening, expectations are rising, and AI is changing the game. We will explore how marketers are adapting, where AI truly adds value, and what it takes to stay creative and effective when every dollar counts. To help us answer these questions, I've invited one of my most admired marketers, Ina, to share her winning strategy. Hey, Ina.
Hey, Gwen, nice to see you. So glad to be here and on the inaugural podcast. Talk about challenges and hearing the signal and the noise. You clearly heard the signal, like someone needs to talk about how AI is driving marketing. And instead of just scouring the internet, you're like, I am the solution. And I love that for you.
Thank you. I'm honored to have you as my first guest. You started your career as a writer, and then you transitioned to designer, and then you worked on solutions and product. Why don't you share your journey and what brought you to Databricks today?
Yeah. So it's such a funny start because I was playing college volleyball and ended up going to a school where that worked out. Did not really pay attention to what my major should be. Went into the like fair, one of the intros when you get to school. And just the first table I ran into, the dean of the department said, "You should come over here. You should do this English major." I was like, okay, that sounds good. But coincidentally, at that school, Dakota State University at that time, every single degree that they had was computer science merged with your other degree. So even if you had an English and a writing degree, it was English plus computer science. Your music degree was music plus computer science. This is way back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So they were really ahead of their time. But that force, though, even though I was in an English and critical thinking and writing, a lot of writing phase, computer science was infused from the beginning. So there was a natural progression to technical writing, a merging of those two. So I started with technical writing, and that was great. I liked it. However, the question that kept burning in me, and it still drives much of what I do today, is but how is your audience receiving this? Do you know who they are well enough to understand how they are receiving the messages that you're writing? Are you documenting what the feature is, or are you helping the user do something? Are you helping them really move the needle? And that sort of change in perspective led me to start a new department at that data management startup that was focused on user experience and user interface design. What I loved about that job, and still do to this day, is that I would just go out and sit with customers for 8 hours of their day, not
Wow.
do a 1 hour interview that said, tell me what you think about my product, but let me sit with you through your whole day and see what it is like, see what your pressures are, see the 30 other applications you're using to get something done, not just my one feature, and really understand how it fits into your whole ecosystem. And that I think still carries through to if you're going to be a great marketer, you need that exact same skill. You need to look beyond the like one quote soundbite and understand what your audience is really trying to get done and what is keeping them up at night. What is their fear? What is their greatest opportunity? So from that user experience design, moved into product management, did that for a long time. Loved that. Still one of the best jobs in the world is product management done right. Then did a lot of go to market and enablement, and finally to product marketing. So across the whole span, all the way from data management startup companies, which are moving real fast in a super dynamic market, from startups all the way to business objects and SAP, massive enterprise companies. to AWS, which was moving just at such an incredible pace, incredible breadth in the market, and now to Databricks, which is really just the epicenter of both of those things. Such pace of innovation, moving so quickly and solving problems in a way because we don't have 50 years of technical debt that we have to account for. We're looking at brand new ways to solve brand new problems, and we have the technical just chops to get it done beautifully.
Thank you so much for walking us through your journey.
I've been here a while.
I know, but a couple of thoughts. What if today everybody is talking about AI? I think it's pretty smart to weave AI into every major. Maybe like for every major, there should be AI component for all of the students who are looking for their major in high school or even in undergraduate. Just a thought, but we will dive into AI later a little bit more. Yeah. And then another thought is looks like across all of your stops, across your journey, all of them are customer facing roles. And I'm curious to know, you've worked in smaller size companies and then big size companies, and especially SAP, AWS, Databricks. All of them are like huge companies and quite different as well, right?
Yeah.
As a marketer, how has your approach evolved across the three different companies?
I think they're talking to different people at the organizations. When I worked at SAP, in large part, we were talking to directors and to lines of business who held the budget and who understood the importance of their business transaction systems, of their ERP, of their CRM, of that master data that ran their entire business. And in fact, one of the customers told me, he said, the data is your business. If your building burns down, you can build another building. If you lost all of the data from your company, you don't have a company anymore. Your company ceases to exist without the data. And that's exactly right. But you have to understand each of your company's different approaches to their market and who they're talking to within a large enterprise business. SAP, like I said, was a lot of that line of business and sort of the finance function. But we had business suite applications that worked in manufacturing and for supply chain. So you had to adapt your message very quickly to each of those lines of business. Whereas AWS, the area I was working in there, was much more focused, I would say, to a technical leader. OpenSearch service was a very technical product. It was a managed service built on top of an open source offering. So it's just a very different consumer of that. And then DataZone was a governance product, which I had worked on at SAP as well, but again, delivered to a very different user who cared about access policies between Glue and DataZone. The people I was speaking to at SAP did not care about that. They wanted to know whether they should have a centralized or a federated governance model. So just it's a different conversation based on the audience that you're talking to.
At Databricks, what is your product?
My product is the data warehouse, the cloud data warehouse called Databricks SQL, and also migration, just as a practice, migration. How do you migrate to a new, modern, open cloud data warehouse?
Speaking of Databricks, I want to dive a little bit deeper. Could you share maybe what is the latest feature you've launched and what are you most excited about it?
Yeah. So let me give you just a little bit about Databricks for those of you who don't know. Databricks is a company that's really focused on bringing data and AI together. So much like we talked about, wouldn't it be great if AI was in every college major? We believe that AI should be in every component of how you manage data for your business. It's that marriage of the two. And that starts with how you store your data, as well as how you manage it, how you query and analyze it, as well as how you build AI on top of all of that data with a single governance model across all of those things, which is really hard to do. But these are the things that we're great at, that unified platform throughout. So my component of that, I'm just going to talk about migration for a little bit because what I work on is enterprise data warehousing, Databricks SQL. And when I started there, data warehousing has been around for forever, 30 years. Come on, long time, longer than that even. Meaning every established business has one. But when I started on this product, we didn't have anything that was really talking about recognizing to move to Databricks SQL, you had to migrate from something. You weren't coming in fresh. This probably wasn't your first data warehouse ever, your first assemblage of analytical information to drive your insights. So this was the first thing to tackle, which I'm super proud of. We spent time in the last year talking to professional services who have implemented end to end and understanding where the pain points are. We've talked to technology companies and acquisitions about the technology that can do that faster and smarter and where we can pull in AI to make it incrementally just much better than we could do by hand. And we've talked to loads of customers about their journey. And, it's interesting because sometimes we get very set on how it is we want people to buy and implement our product. And migration is one of those things that can take 8 years or it can take 3 months. It depends on how you scope and it depends on your level of executive buy-off. It depends on how often your leadership has changed. It depends on if you're implementing one little step towards a whole platform or you bought off on the platform and now you're starting small. So this is what I'm really proud of our work there, because there was a lot of pressure to just say, let's just tell everyone that this is easy. Everyone likes an easy solution. And we really pushed back on that and said, for anyone who's ever done a migration of any sort, you know that it's not easy. And if, as marketing, if I come in the door and say, it's simple and easy, no problems, I lose credibility. No one's going to believe that you actually know what you're doing.
You're over-promising.
Yes, it's been a very interesting back and forth on that one.
Yeah. So you mentioned AI. Is AI a big component of the migration process, or it's not relevant?
It didn't used to be. I think that's what's interesting is in talking to one of my professional services colleagues yesterday who's done so many of these. He talked about migration as migration trauma because he said there are four. There was like the first big migration was to virtualized environments. The second was to big data. Everyone needed to replatform for big data, and the third was the move to the cloud. And that was like a third sort of big migration kind of replatforming. And now it's to be ready for AI. And he said, so I loved his point of you can't just start with this latest migration and think nobody doesn't remember the rest of the trauma that happened with those other migrations, which are also very long. But we hope that this last major migration is being eased by AI because AI can help in a lot of the manual tasks that were having to be done again and again, checking that your results were the same, converting syntax from an old version to a new modernized version with some new features. Those things, AI is great to plug in and help those process.
Mhm. That's great. So, want to talk about AI a little bit more, and then also tying back to our topic today, which is to do more with less. So the bigger context is with AI, a lot of AI tools. So as a marketer, we're expected to do more with less budget compared to before. Across your career, you've worked in smaller size companies as well as bigger size companies across the economic ups and downs and also huge technological changes like today. Is there like a consistent approach of doing things in an era of changes like this? And what has worked consistently in terms of doing more with less?
Yeah. I think that this comes to a topic we had scoped for later too, which is prioritization. And it just means that you have to be ruthless about the things where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to spend your budget. And I think you've got to be ruthless about both. There will be 78 requests coming in about please do this and please knock out this. And oh, my task is little. Could you just do this little thing for me? But each of those requires a shift in attention, and each of those requires time away from something else. So I think you have to be really ruthless on making sure that where you are spending your time is something that is not a one-off request, not for one or two people, but that you're paying attention to the market noise and the pulse of the market and to your customer voices to really establish of the 78 inputs, these are three common themes. And you can't do that unless you've cast a wide net for both the market and customer input to establish those underlying patterns. So I think that prioritization is key. Then for budget, like just marketing budget yourself, I don't have a great answer for that because as product marketing, I don't produce things at grand scale externally, like an event. We don't do that. I'm not in charge of paid search, for example, and where that budget goes and how to spend that money. So our budget is much smaller in product marketing, and it goes to creating very high quality assets that the market needs to hear, and that from thought leaders, from credible sources, to establish a position and a strategy that makes sense to people. That's where I prefer to spend my time, is creating that vision of what you can do better by using our product and by taking a different strategy. So I guess those are the two things I would say.
Hmm. So really thinking about, is that your framework, by the way? Like the way of how do you frame your thinking and how do you make a decision on how to allocate
Yes,
budget?
and people make fun of me for this a little bit, Gwen, and you have too, by the way. So don't think I don't remember. But I'm a big fan of making a yearly plan. You have to make a plan at the beginning of the year that says, these are the big rocks I'm going to deliver for the year. And people tease me here because they're like, you're in such a fast moving environment, everything changes. Yes, but the market problems you are solving are not changing that fast. The customer pain that you are solving is not changing that fast. You should, if you're listening to all the market voices and your customer voices and your internal stakeholder voices, you should be able to highlight the 5 major areas that are either misconceptions that need to be addressed or that are big market rocks that you need a strategy for. There will be surprises, of course, but in all my years of doing this, that plan, that yearly plan, ends up being about 80% right. Plus, by doing that plan early, assembling all those market voices, assembling all those customer voices, you are getting alignment and reviewing with all of your internal stakeholders. So you're all marching in the same direction. So really, you get both. You're getting a plan for yourself, and you're getting alignment and strategic direction across all of the stakeholders. I did a count once at AWS because we were doing a launch, that of the number of people we worked with on a launch was 70. There's no
Wow.
way to get those 70 people going in the same direction without that sort of strategy from your product marketer.
Yeah. I think it's challenging, but also it speaks to the fact that product marketing is such an impactful role. It is like a window between the product and the whole world outside
Yeah.
of product division. And your role is to make sure all of the teams outside of product work with you to the right direction, as opposed to everybody chasing different things, chasing different goals. And it's just not worth your time and other people's time. And the money is not well spent if you don't have a plan.
Yes, you have to have a plan. And in each of those internal stakeholders that you talk to and align with on the plan, they're giving you feedback too that says, these are my 3 big rocks. And you're learning and adapting your plan to think how you can fit in to their 3 big rocks as well. So in the end, it's a much more strategically aligned plan that everyone has bought off on.
Yeah,
And by
totally
the way,
agree.
if you do it early, people will start copying your plan when it's time to do theirs and they haven't started yet. So
Yeah,
that's my other advice. Start early, be the first one through the gate.
yeah. It's really win-win, right? If you share yours, they will share theirs, and then very could be quite collaborative process if you are open, right?
Yes. And you have to be open, like you don't have all the right answers. Nobody does.
Yeah.
That's why there are so many of you, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I want to come back to AI. So when we think about product marketing, usually do not have a huge budget compared to maybe campaign team, maybe brand team, maybe other teams. But then now with AI coming in, and the budget becomes even smaller compared to before. Now, when you are
And it's
working,
interfet. I'm sorry, but it's also that it's the people budget, the budget from how much headcount you have. It's also getting smaller, not just your like line item budget for the year.
okay. So what you are saying is you're expected to do maybe 5 people's work or 10.
Yeah, I need to put that in my performance plan, Gwen.
Yeah. Maybe can you share with us how you use AI in your role today?
Yeah. And you got me thinking about this. And I think one of the first times we started to use this was back at AWS when Party Rock just came out, if you'll remember. Party Rock came out, and there was just a push for to have everyone inside AWS to start creating apps on Party Rock. And we all did. And some of them were small and many of them were silly. But it got you thinking about how AI can change and automate some of the tasks that we had to do every day. And I think the little silly one that I wrote was, I started as a technical writer. I'm not good at marketing high level talk. I'm good at it. It's not
Lots
quite.
to
Yeah.
see that.
But when people say it sounds too marketing, it's like a dagger to my heart. But so I wrote an AI app at that point to help me optimize my session titles for reInvent, because I was saying exactly what the session was, but they weren't snappy and catchy and like eye-grabbing. So I wrote an AI app to help me with that in Party Rock. So that was one of the first things. And then just gradually it's become more and more of an assistant to help automate, I would say, a lot of the redundant tasks, which we have a lot of in product marketing, of checking with this person and like nudging this person to do the thing that they were going to do. We had a Databricks marketing hackathon just a few weeks ago, and it was so interesting to see all of the different ways we were proposing to use AI. My group was talking about reference pipeline automation. We all know we need references. And the interview, like you're doing with me now, by the way, Gwen is a master journalist and interviewer. She's done this for, I don't even say how many years, Gwen, you'd be mad at me, but a long time, and you're great at it. But that part is the magic, interviewing and the pulling details out of people, that we wanted to keep. But all of the little steps in front of that, of checking these 28 sources to see who might be a good reference and validating their usage against our customer dashboards and pinging the account teams and then pinging them again if they didn't reply, and then automating their non-response or their response that yes, the customer would be interested, and move them on to the next phase. All of that work is ripe for AI. So that was our proposal, automating all of those little nudges and mining of information from many different sources to get us to a place where we could do the high value interview. So that's one example, but it gives you a feel for, we're using it for automation, helping fill out things like campaign briefs, or to help give you, sometimes when you're stuck, you're like, so this example of what I was talking to you earlier about the migration trauma, there's something there. And as soon as the professional services guy said it, I'm like, there is something there. So I used AI to help me to do some market research about if this is a topic that had been talked about before and in what ways. And I used it to spar back and forth with me about what kinds of assets could we make that could address this problem, and what are angles that resonate with the audience that I'm specifically talking to, and how I want to message my product, and how Databricks messages our product, that'll help me build a mini campaign that talks specifically to that point. So AI is infused through all of those pieces, and it will be infused in helping me create some of those assets, the bones of them.
Mm-hmm. I like what you described about like how you connect the dots and then start with research of the market and then think about the things you can do based on your research. I want to hear a little bit more about it. What is your approach of doing market analysis? Market analysis can include competitor analysis, industry trends, and customer insights. Done well, it really can unlock a lot of growth opportunities. I want to hear what is your approach? Where do you usually go? And then what are the tools you use? And how do you distill all of these intelligence into maybe project ideas and then eventually to shape something that will have huge impact on product pipeline as well?
Gwen, that could be a whole book right there. You're going to have to keep me honest on my answers to each of those pieces. But I think the first question on where do you start with all of that market analysis is, a lot of it is web searching. And I would say you have to be very careful that the sources are credible, not someone who works for a company and their only job is to tell you how great their company is. And then that they're structuring the strategy of what they're saying based entirely on their single offering. So I think you've got to be very careful on the credibility of the sources that you're taking those market sensors from. But I think the other thing that is overlooked and is one of the joys of moving to a different company, honestly, is uncovering all of the little rocks, because there are organizations in your company that maybe most people haven't uncovered. A business value organization that's whole job is to help customers quantify the business value of moving to your platform. We have one of these at Databricks, and they're great because in customers' own voices, they have said, this is how I quantify it for myself. And this is the productivity gains we have gotten, but they tend to be used just like to help someone make a sale. So this was a source that I'm using to help me mine what are the common threads across all of those individual engagements where people have said that this is really lifting the boat, and how can I use AI to evaluate and anonymize all of that information and help me highlight trends. So there are groups like that that I think are helpful to uncover. Also, there's usually a competitive intelligence group that are diving deep on analyzing the competitive landscape. They have a set of information that is rich and also very different than that business value group. There's also separate audience groups like the developer relations group. They work closely with the developer audience, where that's not who I'm talking to every day. I'm talking to the person with the budget. So taking in their perspective, it's really them melding and seeing the signals across all of those different types of audiences, as well as outside of your company, and as well as analyst trends, just customers still are checking and giving great validation for when it's an enterprise purchase.
Wow, that's a lot of information. That exactly speaks to my original comment. Product marketing is so critical. It is such a function that connects dots, and then collaborating, leveraging all of the different teams and resources to tell a true differentiated story and then to really drive growth of the product. So that's the analysis part. In my mind, connect the dots, and then maybe you can detect some signals. In an ideal world, you would see, hey, these are all of the inputs. Maybe you've described 5 inputs, maybe there are more, maybe there are 10 inputs, and then
Yeah.
maybe what are the outputs? Maybe outputs could be, this is the idea I'm getting that's related to my launch that I'm going to do next month or 2 months down the road. And the other one could be, this is sales enablement, and I'm creating a customer facing deck. Maybe it's a first call deck. And all of these signals, inputs I'm putting in can be distilled and infused into the customer facing deck. We're going to cover these 2 areas later. But first of all, I want to focus on product launch, because product launch is such an important piece for product marketing. Can you share with us? You mentioned earlier you have limited budget, but then I would imagine you have a lot of product launches as well, just as we did at AWS, right? How do you prioritize those launches, and what is your approach in terms of allocating budget?
Yeah. So prioritizing the launches comes down to a few things. It comes down to, is the feature that we are delivering, does it unlock new use cases or new value for the customer? And the only way that you know that is, again, by listening to the market as a whole and gathering input from all of those sources. So in the back of your mind, you always have that sort of heat map of, these are the hot customer topics, these are the hot customer pain points. Is this specific launch delivering something against one of those pain points? Or is it a smaller, almost checkbox have to have item? Is it something that is fixing an issue that has been around for a long time that's going to get a lower priority? Is it something that's completely changing or opening up a new lane in your market or in your product space, in your customers' problems? Then that's going to get higher priority. So I think it's first that prioritization call of, how impactful is this going to be to the market? And as a product marketer, you're going to hear many things from your product management and engineering team that their future deserves the sunshine. And I love that. And I totally get that. I started in engineering because you have put your blood and sweat and tears into this feature, and you want it to get the love and support and sunshine of the broader organization. But that's part of the product management and product marketing job, is to bounce that priority against the visibility necessary in the market. So I think that's my prioritization call.
Yeah. And let's see which feature you want to prioritize, right? And there are a lot of things you can do. If you look at the huge bump list, right?
Yeah.
You want to give them sunshine, but then you also want to maximize your dollars. And maybe can you share with us an example, like how do you allocate your budget across your bump list?
First, I would say you have to look at bundling. And nearly always, if this is a major theme that's hitting on that heat map in the back of your head that you're gathering and it's your engineering plan for the year, you probably have 3 or 4 different little feature launches that all support that major theme. So that's the first way to maximize your budget and your time and get more sunshine is to bundle some of those things all together into a larger theme and make it more of a broader moment. This will also maximize your budget for launch videos and YouTube or demo videos if you can make a strategic theme across all of them.
Mhm. I like that. Bundling across different features, and some of the features might be perfect for a specific messaging pattern, right? If
Yeah.
you have 3 messaging patterns, maybe you bundle 5 into one messaging pattern and 2 in the second messaging pattern, and then another couple in the third messaging pattern, so that you don't have to do all of them individually and
Yes,
repetitively. I like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is why you're a good interviewer, Gwen. You're summarizing my rambling into a little, it's nice.
Oh, thank you. So we've talked about the launches. Let's come to the sales enablement, right? I
Yeah.
know, Ina, you're a planner. You're so good at strategic thinking, and different organizations have different approaches of doing sales enablement. But coming back to our topic today, low cost, less budget, and then also think about how do we leverage different teams and collaborate with different teams to have the bigger impact. So, what is your approach for sales enablement? And can you maybe share with us a like low cost but huge impact project you've done? Could be within Databricks or other companies.
Yeah, you're probably not going to love my answer here, Gwen, because for me, it always comes back to data. And the only way that you have data on making sure your sales enablement is right is to go talk to people. I think the other mistake that we make is having one sales enablement when in every company I've worked at, there are different roles. There's a more technical solution architect who's helping with the deal. There's an AE who's positioning the higher value of the product. There's professional services and partner organizations who are rolling your strategy into how they are enabling their own partner sellers. So I think there are many different dimensions, and our mistake is when we have a product launch and we roll out one video that says, this is how you talk about my feature. It doesn't work. The AE does not care about how to talk about your feature. The partner enablement person probably cares in a very different way. The developer persona and the cloud infrastructure persona cares in a very different way. So when we've tried to homogenize all of that into one 5-minute video that talks about this is what the product does, we're missing all of those marks. So I think the only way that you know that is by interviewing all of those constituents, gathering their anecdotal data, how they want to be talked to, what works the best for them, how do they talk to their customers, what kind of information do they need to really plug the holes in their sales journey. It's the only way to know that those things. So I think that that's the first big step. In terms of what can you do in a low cost way to really target your sales enablement? Small pieces, small, because every sales team I have worked with, the account reps have maybe 80 different things to sell, and they have many accounts that they're trying to sell them to. They don't have time to read a 30-page like best practices document from you. So you need small, bite-sized things that plug into exactly their piece in that entire sales journey. And this is where AI is helpful. It's still your job to come up with the strategy, the messaging, matching against those market heat maps and matching against what new value you're going to deliver, but helping you tailor that message or at least give you a draft of that message for your different internal audiences is where AI can be a great help.
Wow, that's a lot. I like that. A leader used in my early career used to tell me, Gwen, in order to be a good marketer, you have to talk to sales all the time. That's still true today, even with a lot of data can be easily available through AI. you still need to talk to humans. You still need to be very close to salespeople and understand how they approach customer problems and how they talk to customers and what is the language they're using. And totally agree. You said they don't have time. They work with a lot of clients, and maybe smaller chunk of size of the content could be tremendously helpful. They don't have time to read long docs. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what AI is good at. I love that.
Yeah. I would say too, like you have to be intentional on who you're talking to in sales, because the difference in talking to a guy who's been a sales rep for you for 10 years and is one of the like masters, the difference in what he needs between what a guy who's been there 6 months needs or a lady who just got a new account, it's very different in what they need to back them up to feel confident when they go on to speak to a customer.
Yeah. It's all about who you are talking to and who you are enabling, right? And as a marketer, we always keep that in mind. Who is our target audience, right? What is the persona we're enabling? Yeah.
Yes, if you're just reframing the requirements document from product management, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We've talked a lot. I want to ask you a few questions. You are one of my respected mentors. Across my career, I benefited a lot from my mentors. What is your advice to a new employee or young professionals in marketing in the age of AI?
Yeah. I think number one, AI doesn't solve your problems. Like you still need to talk to customers, you still need to understand the market and interpret the results and help and direct AI. If you think that you can just plug a question into ChatGPT and get an answer back and you're done, that is not enough. You have to still frame and guide and poke and frame. That is the first thing I would say. But I got some great advice long ago. I'm a person who loves data, as you are, Gwen. We wouldn't end up here otherwise. But long ago, when I was launching the new department for user interaction design and user research and going out to talk to users, the first thing you do is you read all the books and all the blogs and you get immersed in what does that mean and how do you do this well and how are world-class people executing at this. So I was doing this and had gone to a conference and I just talked to the speaker afterwards and said, I've read this and I've read this and I've read this. What do I need to read next? And she said, no, you need to do the thing. You've read enough. You need to do the thing. And that is such great advice because we can get stuck in the, I need to know more. I need to know more. You need to know a baseline of information for sure, but then it's time to prototype and go out and try. What's the worst that can happen? Go out and try. And so I think that still is the best advice that I have. Do your research, but go out and do.
Yeah, I like that. It's all about trial and error, and you learn by doing. And sometimes, especially for women, we tend to think that we don't know enough and we are hesitant of speaking up. And we tend to spend a huge amount of time learning and reading. And then we are very hesitant of raising our hands to say, hey, I know this. And coming back to your point on doing, you have to pick up something, maybe small. It doesn't matter. As long as you start doing something, you will enhance your thinking and hone your skills in what you took from your reading. Maybe you watch a lot of videos or podcasts, but then really you have to pick up something small. That's how you can learn fast.
And AI is a great example for that. You can read all the docs on how to use AI and when to use it, but until you start like opening it up and trying it and seeing what results you get, it's academic. You have to do.
Yeah. I like the direction we're going. I'm going to wrap this up. In my opinion, I think AI is really opening a lot of opportunities for marketers because think about non-English native speaker with AI, they can write so much better. But then also keep that in mind. You have to know what exactly you're looking for. And you have to have the strategy in your mind in order to tell AI what can help you come up with. And then, like you mentioned, AI may be not enough today, but you can work with AI and teach AI so that it can better benefit you and give what you need.
Yeah. It should be one of the top tools in your toolbox, but it is a tool for you. The other thing that I
Exactly.
really love using it for is when you have assets or materials that are going to go up to the CEO. It's really great because our CEO is fantastic, and he's done a lot of interviews, and you catch him on Bloomberg or any of these sites, and you can pull the transcript from those things. You can pull it into AI and say, this is his voice. This is how he talks. Now act as him and critique the piece that I'm giving to you. And it just gives you different ways to think about what you're saying. And that's a great place where AI is just so helpful.
I love that. Thank you so much, Aina. Let us know how we can follow you, how we can connect with you.
I'm on LinkedIn, of course. Ina Felsheim, super easy.